The massive alien ships appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. They came without warning, their dark hulls blocking out the sun over every major city on Earth. The world held its breath, waiting for what would come next. In the Pentagon's underground command center, Commander Tom Smith watched the main screen with steady eyes, while others around him panicked. 20 years in the Army had taught him that panic was a luxury no soldier could afford. The aliens had better technology, yes, but they didn't know what humans were capable of. Not yet. "They're broadcasting something," a young operator called out. The message was simple and clear. "Submit or be destroyed." The same words repeated in every language on Earth. The world's leaders had only an hour to respond. Most wanted to surrender, to save lives. But they had seen the alien ship's weapon systems. These weren't peaceful visitors. They were hunters, conquerors who had done this before. "Sir, they're powering up their weapons." The warning came just as Smith had expected. The aliens never planned to wait for an answer. The first plasma bolts struck major military bases worldwide. The aliens thought their orbital strikes would break humanity's will to fight. They were wrong. Underground bases that the aliens didn't know about came alive. Soldiers who had trained for everything from nuclear war to zombie outbreaks now faced their ultimate test. In bunkers deep beneath the Earth's surface, humanity's defenders prepared for war. Smith walked through the crowded command center, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Listen up. This is what we've trained for. Every war game, every crazy scenario we planned for. It wasn't a waste of time. It was preparation for today." The aliens' second wave of attacks targeted power plants and communication centers. But they didn't know about the backup systems, the hidden networks built during the Cold War and maintained ever since. They didn't understand that humans had spent centuries preparing for the worst. In his private office, Smith studied the alien ships' attack patterns. They were efficient, yes. Perfect, even. Too perfect. Their attacks followed the same strategy over and over. No variation. No adaptation. Just the same precise strikes repeated across the globe. "They've never faced real resistance," Smith muttered to himself. "They're used to species that give up after the first attack." He pressed a button on his desk, connecting him to all remaining military commands worldwide. "All units, this is Commander Smith. The enemy has shown their hand. They have better ships, better guns, and better armor. But they have a weakness." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They think they know how war works. They think their technology makes them unbeatable. But they've never faced humans before." Reports started coming in from around the world. The aliens' plasma weapons had turned military bases to glass, but they missed the soldiers who had already evacuated. Their scans couldn't penetrate the deeper bunkers. Their perfect strategy had failed to account for human unpredictability. Smith ordered all forces to stay hidden, to wait. Let the aliens think their orbital bombardment had worked. Let them think Earth's militaries were destroyed. Let them come down to claim their prize. In the command center's break room, Smith poured himself a cup of coffee. A young lieutenant joined him, hands shaking as she held her own cup. "Sir, do you really think we have a chance? Their technology is so far beyond ours." Smith smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but a wolf's grin before the hunt. "Lieutenant, let me tell you about the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union. A small force with less technology held off a superpower. Or Vietnam, where farmers defeated the world's strongest military. Hell, even the American Revolution was won by rebels against an empire." He turned to face the room full of worried officers. "Technology doesn't win wars. Determination does. Adaptability does. The will to fight does." He pointed at the ceiling, toward the alien ships above. "They think they're invincible because they've never lost. But that's their weakness. They don't know how to handle defeat. We do. Humans have lost battles, lost wars, and learned from every loss. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. The aliens' third wave of attacks began as Smith finished speaking. But this time, something was different. This time, humanity was ready. This time, when the alien ships descended from orbit, they would learn why conquering Earth would be the biggest mistake their empire had ever made. The alien dropships looked like giant metal wasps as they descended through Earth's atmosphere. They came in perfect formation, thousands of them, their hulls glowing red-hot from the entry. The Dominion's ground invasion had begun. Jack watched from his hidden position in an abandoned office building in downtown Denver. His squad had spent the last 3 days setting up their trap, and now they would see if all their planning would work. The 28-year-old lieutenant kept his breathing steady as the first dropship landed in the middle of the empty street. "Remember," he whispered into his radio, "no one fires until they're all on the ground. Let them think they're safe." His 12 soldiers, spread across different buildings, clicked their radios once to acknowledge. The alien soldiers that marched out of the dropships were tall, covered in sleek armor that shimmered with energy shields. They moved in perfect lines, their weapons held high, just like they had probably done on 100 other worlds. They didn't bother checking the buildings. Why should they? Their scan showed no human heat signatures, thanks to the cold suits the squad wore. Jack counted silently. 100 aliens from the first ship, then another 100 from the second. By the time the 5th dropship landed, 500 alien soldiers stood in the street, preparing to secure what they thought was an empty city. "Now," Jack said quietly into his radio. The first part of their trap was simple. Hundreds of mirrors, positioned in windows across 20 buildings, suddenly reflected the morning sunlight directly at the alien soldiers' faceplates. It was an old trick, used by armies since ancient times. The aliens' advanced helmets, designed to enhance vision, were overwhelmed by the sudden light. They staggered, their perfect formation breaking. That's when the second part of the trap kicked in. The road beneath the aliens' feet suddenly collapsed. The humans had spent days weakening the street and the sewers beneath it. 500 alien soldiers, each wearing heavy armor, was too much weight. They fell into the darkness below. "Phase 3, Jack ordered. His soldiers activated the industrial fans they had placed in the sewers. The underground tunnels filled with thick smoke, blocking the aliens' vision. Their energy shields might stop bullets, but they couldn't stop smoke. The aliens tried to use their weapons, shooting bright energy bolts in every direction. But they couldn't see their targets, and their shots just hit concrete. Their perfect tactics, their advanced technology, meant nothing in the chaos of the sewers. Jack's squad started picking them off with simple crossbows. The arrows weren't fast enough to trigger the energy shields, and they pierced the aliens' armor easily. It was a trick they had learned from old stories about knights in armor. Sometimes the simplest weapons worked best. "Command, this is Denver Squad 3, Jack reported. First trap successful. Enemy forces in disarray." Similar reports were coming in from cities across the world. The aliens' rigid tactics were failing against human creativity. But the aliens weren't done. More dropships were landing in other parts of the city. Jack's squad quickly moved through their escape tunnels, heading to their next ambush site. They had dozens more traps ready, each one different. The aliens would learn, would try to adapt, but they would always be one step behind. In their command ship high above Earth, the alien leaders received reports of their ground forces' failures. Their soldiers were dying, killed by primitives using simple tricks and basic weapons. It made no sense. Their tactical computers couldn't understand it. The humans weren't fighting like any species they had encountered before. Back in Denver, Jack led his squad through the underground tunnels they knew by heart. They could hear the aliens trying to follow, their heavy boots echoing on concrete. But the humans knew every turn, every hiding spot, every dead end that could become a trap. "Sir," one of Jack's soldiers whispered, "they're saying on the radio that New York took down 3,000 alien troops using nothing but construction equipment and the subway tunnels." Jack smiled. The aliens had expected an army that would stand and fight. Instead, they got thousands of small units like his, each one fighting their own way, using whatever worked. The aliens' perfect formations were useless against enemies they couldn't find, couldn't predict. As they prepared their next ambush, Jack thought about how the aliens must feel. They had conquered worlds, defeated armies, all with their superior technology and perfect tactics. But they had never faced humans before. They had never faced an enemy that turned everything into a weapon, that fought from the shadows, that refused to follow the normal rules of war. The aliens would learn, but by then it would be too late. Humanity wasn't just fighting. They were teaching the galaxy's greatest empire a lesson about war they would never forget. The alien commander slammed his fist on the holographic display table. 3 weeks into the ground invasion, and everything was going wrong. His forces were dying in ways that made no sense. In Russia, an entire alien division had vanished in the snow. Their advanced armor, designed to work in the vacuum of space, couldn't handle temperatures below zero. The humans, wrapped in simple fur and wool, had watched from hidden bunkers as the alien soldiers froze. Then they took the aliens' weapons and disappeared back into the white wasteland. Report from the Amazon sector, a junior officer announced. 3rd Battalion is gone. The humans, he paused, checking his data again. The humans used the trees against us. The commander didn't understand at first. Used the trees. Then he saw the footage. The humans had learned that alien sensors couldn't tell the difference between heat from their bodies and heat from rotting plants. They hid under piles of leaves, covered themselves in mud, and struck without warning. Their primitive projectile weapons shouldn't have been a threat, but they worked perfectly in the wet, humid air that made energy shields sputter and fail. More reports came in from around the planet. In Afghanistan, human fighters used the mountains to trap alien units in valleys, then triggered landslides with simple explosives. The aliens' anti-gravity systems couldn't react fast enough to save them from thousands of tons of falling rock. In the Australian outback, alien patrols disappeared in the vast desert. Their water recycling systems, perfect for space travel, couldn't handle the fine sand that got everywhere. The humans, who had lived in these harsh conditions for generations, found them days later, their bodies perfectly preserved in the dry heat. "Sir," another officer reported, "the humans in Canada are using the lakes against us. They drill holes in the ice, and—" the commander waved him silent. He didn't want to hear another report about humans using simple tricks to defeat superior technology. But the reports kept coming. In Scotland, the humans used the thick fog to slip past alien sensors. In the African savanna, they buried their vehicles in the tall grass and ambushed alien patrols. Even the empty deserts of the Middle East became death traps, where human raiders appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. The commander called his senior officers together. "How?" he demanded. "How do they do this? Every environment on this planet should kill them. It's too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. How do they not just survive, but fight?" His science officer spoke up. "Sir, I've been studying their history. These humans, they evolved on this world. Every environment that's killing us. They've lived there for thousands of years. They don't just know these places. They're part of them." In the Siberian forests, a group of human soldiers demonstrated this truth. They moved silently through the deep snow, their white clothes blending perfectly with their surroundings. They had grown up in these woods, hunted in them, trained in them. The alien patrol they were tracking had better weapons, better armor, and absolutely no chance. The humans struck at night, when the temperature dropped so low that the aliens' energy weapons started to malfunction. Simple steel knives, carried by humans for countless generations, worked just fine in any weather. Back in the alien command ship, the reports grew worse. The humans weren't just surviving in these harsh environments. They were thriving. Each landscape posed different challenges, and the humans had an answer for each one. Mud for camouflage in the jungle, ice caves for shelter in the mountains, underground rivers for secret movement in the desert. "Sir," the science officer said quietly, "I don't think we can win this. Not on the ground. Every environment on Earth is a weapon in human hands, even their cities." He shuddered, remembering the reports from urban combat. Even their cities are built to be defensive positions. They've been fighting in these places for their entire history. The commander stared at the global map, watching as more and more of his forces disappeared into Earth's varied landscapes. The humans didn't need advanced technology. They had something far more powerful. Thousands of years of learning to survive and fight in every environment their world could throw at them. As another red dot vanished from his display, representing another lost alien unit, the commander finally understood. His forces weren't just fighting human soldiers. They were fighting the planet itself, and Earth had taught its children well. The captured alien officer sat in his cell, watching old videos of human wars on a simple tablet his captors had given him. At first, he thought it was some kind of psychological torture, making him watch endless battles from humanity's past. Now he understood. They were trying to teach him why his people had already lost this war. Major Bill Rogers watched through the one-way glass as the alien studied footage from World War II, Vietnam, and modern conflicts. The alien's 4 eyes blinked rapidly whenever something surprised him, which happened often. "See anything interesting?" Bill asked through the intercom. The alien looked up. "Your people, you keep changing how you fight. In these videos, every army fights differently. Even in the same war, they change their tactics daily. How do your commanders control such chaos?" Bill laughed. "That's the point. They don't. Every human commander makes their own decisions based on what's in front of them. We call it battlefield adaptability." Meanwhile, across the world, that adaptability was proving deadly to the alien invasion. In Brazil, human soldiers had captured an alien dropship. Within hours, local engineers had figured out how to fly it. Within days, they'd taught resistance fighters across South America how to steal and pilot more. In Japan, tech experts discovered that alien energy shields had a fatal flaw. They couldn't stop very slow-moving objects. Soon, every human resistance group knew that a simple wooden arrow or a thrown rock could bypass the most advanced alien defenses. The alien officer watched more footage, his confusion growing. "Your weapons, they're all different. Even soldiers in the same unit carry different gear. In the Dominion, every soldier has exactly the same equipment. It's efficient." "Efficient, yeah," Bill agreed. "And predictable. Once we figure out how to beat one of your soldiers, we can beat all of them the same way. But every human soldier might have a different trick up their sleeve." In his command center in orbit, the alien Supreme Commander was reaching the same conclusion. His analysts had identified over 300 different human combat styles being used against his forces. Just when they developed countermeasures for one tactic, the humans switched to something new. "Sir," his intelligence chief reported, "the humans in Egypt are now using our own dropships against us. But they've modified them in ways our engineers say shouldn't work. They've attached primitive projectile weapons to the hulls." The commander rubbed his eyes. "How?" "The weapon systems are genetically locked to our species. They removed our computers entirely. They're flying our ships using something called manual controls that they built themselves." Back in the holding cell, the captured officer had reached the Vietnam War footage. "These soldiers," he pointed at the screen, "they're losing badly. Their equipment is inferior, they're outnumbered. But they don't give up. They just change how they fight." Bill nodded. "That's another thing you folks don't understand. Humans learn more from losing than from winning. Every defeat teaches us something new. And we've had a lot of defeats to learn from." Across Europe, human resistance fighters were proving this point. They had studied every failed defense against the aliens' initial attacks. Now they were using the aliens' own tactics against them, but with human unpredictability mixed in. In Paris, the aliens found their own energy weapons mounted on human vehicles, modified to run on simple gasoline engines. In Berlin, their communication systems were being hacked using technology cobbled together from cell phones and old radio parts. The humans took everything the aliens threw at them, learned from it, and turned it into something new. The alien officer watched the last video, showing modern special forces training. Your soldiers, they're not just taught to fight, they're taught to think, to solve problems. In the Dominion, we follow orders. Humans seem to treat orders more like suggestions. Guidelines, Bill corrected. We call them guidelines. The mission is what matters, not how you accomplish it. That's why you can't beat us. Your soldiers are trained to fight wars. Our soldiers are trained to win them, by any means necessary. As if to prove his point, reports came in from across the globe. Human forces were using captured alien technology in ways its creators had never imagined. Infantry squads carried a mix of alien energy rifles and simple human weapons, switching between them based on the situation. Every defeat, every lost battle, every fallen city had taught humanity something new about their enemy. And now, those lessons were being put to use. The aliens had expected to face a primitive species learning about advanced technology for the first time. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy who took their greatest strengths and turned them into weaknesses. The alien scout team moved carefully through the dark tunnel. Their advanced sensors, which could spot a warm body from orbit, were nearly useless down here. The cold, damp walls absorbed heat signatures. Their motion detectors showed nothing but rats and dripping water. The only light came from their rifle-mounted beams. Another dead end, the team leader reported, staring at the brick wall in front of them. They had spent 6 hours exploring these tunnels under London, finding nothing but endless passages that led nowhere. Then the wall moved. The brick wall was actually a cleverly painted piece of cloth. It dropped, revealing 30 human soldiers who had been waiting silently in the darkness. Before the aliens could raise their weapons, the humans attacked with simple metal clubs and knives. In the narrow tunnel, the aliens' energy rifles were more dangerous to themselves than their enemies. Above ground, the alien command received one last transmission from the scout team before their signals went dead. Another unit lost in the endless maze beneath the human cities. They didn't know that humans had been digging tunnels for thousands of years. Every major city had layers of them. Old subway lines, sewers, utility corridors, forgotten bomb shelters, and secret passages that didn't appear on any official maps. The humans knew every inch of these underground labyrinths. To the aliens, they were death traps. Deep beneath Moscow, General Mike ran his finger along a paper map. No computers down here. They had learned that alien sensors could detect electronic signals. Instead, they used paper maps and hand signals, just like their grandfathers had done in older wars. "They're trying to map the tunnels," his second-in-command whispered. Third team spotted them using survey drones near the old metro line. Mike nodded. "Let them. Every map they make is wrong." He pointed to where his engineers had built false walls and fake passages. The real tunnels, dug in secret over the past month, didn't show up on any scans. His people moved through them like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. The aliens had expected human resistance to weaken as they took control of the surface. Instead, humanity had gone underground, turning the planet's crust into one vast fortress. Every mining tunnel became a supply line. Every cave system hid a resistance base. Every sewer could be an ambush site. In the alien command ship, the Supreme Commander received more disturbing reports. His forces had found vast underground facilities in the Rocky Mountains, but when they'd reached them, they were empty. The humans had already moved everything through secret passages his scouts couldn't find. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we found another weapons cache." He showed footage of a massive underground chamber. But something's wrong. The humans, they're using our own survey data against us. The commander studied the footage. The humans had learned that alien sensors couldn't tell the difference between natural caves and man-made tunnels. So they dug new passages that looked exactly like natural formations. Every time his forces followed their scans to a natural cave system, they found another ambush waiting. Back underground, Mike's forces prepared their next surprise. They had discovered that the aliens' ground-penetrating radar had one major weakness: it couldn't see through water. So they flooded entire tunnel sections, using simple diving gear to move supplies and troops past alien detection. "They still think we're primitive," Mike told his officers during a briefing in an old nuclear bunker. "They don't understand that humans have been fighting underground since we lived in caves. Every trick they try, we've seen before. Every technology they use, we find a way around it." The aliens learned this lesson the hard way. Their forces in Paris disappeared into the famous catacombs. In Rome, ancient tunnels that hadn't seen use since the Roman Empire became highways for resistance fighters. In Vietnam, the Q Chi tunnels, once used against American forces, now trapped alien soldiers in endless underground mazes. Even in the deserts of Egypt and Iraq, humans used ancient burial chambers and forgotten archaeological sites to move unseen. The aliens' perfect technological warfare meant nothing in these ancient passages, where simple tricks and traps had worked for thousands of years. "They're pulling back to the surface," Mike's radio operator reported. "Looks like they're done trying to fight us down here." Mike smiled in the darkness. The aliens had just lost control of an entire dimension of the battlefield. While they held the skies and fought for the surface, humanity ruled the underground. And from beneath the earth, they were preparing surprises that would make the aliens regret ever thinking humans were primitive. The morning sky filled with stolen alien dropships. But these ships didn't fly in the neat, perfect formations the aliens used. They zigzagged, flying low and fast, piloted by human crews who had learned to push the machines beyond their designed limits. Operation Payback had begun. In the lead ship, Commander Smith watched Earth's cities pass below. 3 months of fighting had taught humanity everything about how the aliens worked. Now it was time to show them what humans could really do. "All units, execute Plan Thunder," Smith ordered through a radio cobbled together from alien and human parts. Across the globe, resistance forces emerged from their underground bases, but they didn't fight like separate armies. For the first time in human history, every military force on Earth worked as one. Russian tanks, modified with alien armor, smashed through enemy lines in Europe. American special forces, wearing captured alien stealth suits, appeared inside enemy bases in Asia. Brazilian guerrilla fighters used alien anti-gravity systems to scale buildings in seconds. Every human force used a mix of stolen alien tech and traditional weapons, creating combinations the enemy had never seen before. The alien Supreme Commander watched in horror as his forces began to crumble. "How are they coordinating these attacks? We've destroyed their command centers." His intelligence chief looked pale. "Sir, they're not coordinating. Each human force is fighting its own way, but somehow they're all working together. They're even using our own battle plans against us." He was right. The humans had studied every alien tactic, every strategy. Now they took those perfect, predictable plans and added human chaos to them. When the aliens expected a frontal assault, the humans attacked from behind. When they prepared for a stealthy approach, humans came in with overwhelming force. In orbit, alien ships watched helplessly as their ground forces were split apart. The humans had learned that the aliens' rigid command structure couldn't handle being cut off from their leaders. Every time they isolated an alien unit, it froze, waiting for orders that would never come. "Launch the reserve forces," the Supreme Commander ordered. Thousands more dropships descended toward Earth. But the humans were ready. Chinese hackers, working with German engineers, had cracked the aliens' communication codes. As the reinforcements entered the atmosphere, every human transmitter on Earth began broadcasting conflicting orders on alien frequencies. The perfectly organized alien formations fell into chaos. "Sir," the tactical officer shouted, "the humans, they're using our own ships to shoot down our reinforcements." The stolen dropships proved deadly in human hands. Free from the aliens' rigid tactics, human pilots used them in ways their designers had never imagined. They flew through buildings, used the weather as cover, and performed maneuvers that should have torn the ships apart. On the ground, the alien forces faced an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Indian Army units burst from underground tunnels. Canadian Special Forces repelled from buildings. African militia groups emerged from the jungles. Each force fought differently, but they all struck at the same time. The aliens tried to predict where the humans would attack next, but their tactical computers couldn't handle human creativity. When they fortified high ground, humans attacked from below. When they guarded the main roads, humans came through buildings. Every alien defensive position faced attacks from directions they thought impossible. In his command ship, the Supreme Commander received the worst news yet. "Sir, the humans, they're not just stealing our technology. They're improving it." The evidence was clear. Human engineers had modified alien energy weapons to work in any weather. They had improved alien armor to be lighter and stronger. They had even found ways to combine their primitive projectile weapons with alien power systems, creating hybrid weapons that bypassed energy shields completely. How? The commander demanded. How can they improve technology they only saw 3 months ago? The answer was simple. Humans had spent their entire history taking other people's ideas and making them better. Every human culture had its own way of solving problems, its own approach to warfare. Now they shared these ideas freely, creating combinations the aliens had never imagined. As the day went on, more alien units surrendered. They had trained to fight armies that thought like them, that followed the same rules of war. Instead, they faced an enemy that combined thousands of years of military tradition with stolen alien technology, creating something entirely new. The Supreme Commander watched another sector fall to the humans. His perfect invasion plan, tested on 100 worlds, had failed, because humans didn't just adapt to survive. They adapted to win. The alien Supreme Commander stood before the Dominion's High Council, his shoulders slumped in defeat. On the massive screen behind him, footage from Earth showed his retreating forces. The most powerful invasion fleet ever assembled was running from what they had called a primitive world. "Explain," the council leader demanded. "How did we lose to a species that hasn't even colonized their own solar system?" The commander activated his report display. "We didn't just lose to their weapons," he began. "We lost to this." He showed footage of human forces fighting across Earth. "Look at how each group fights differently. The Russians don't fight like the Americans. The Chinese don't fight like the British. Even small resistance groups have their own tactics." In the council chamber, the military advisors watched as humans used everything from high-tech alien weapons to simple stone traps to defeat their forces. One scene showed Brazilian fighters using captured alien ships alongside primitive blowguns whose darts could somehow slip through energy shields. Another showed Japanese defenders mixing ancient samurai sword techniques with stolen alien armor. "Their strength isn't their technology," the commander continued. "It's their adaptability, their creativity, their endless drive to survive and win." He paused the footage. "We fight wars like machines. Perfect, predictable. They fight like humans." On Earth, the cleanup had begun. In every city, humans emerged from their underground shelters and hidden bases. They brought with them thousands of captured alien weapons and vehicles, but they didn't just keep them as war trophies. They started taking them apart, learning how they worked, finding ways to make them better. The council watched in silence as the commander showed more footage. Human engineers had already modified alien energy rifles to work with simple batteries. They'd improved alien armor by adding traditional camouflage techniques. They'd even found ways to make alien technology work better than it had before. "This was supposed to be an easy conquest," one council member said. "A primitive species with no space fleet, no energy weapons, no unified world government. How did they beat us?" The commander showed his final piece of evidence. a simple history book. Because they've been fighting wars since before they invented writing. Every human culture has its own military traditions, its own way of solving problems. When we attacked, they didn't just share weapons. They shared ideas. Back on Earth, Commander Smith stood at a podium before representatives from every nation. Behind him, captured alien ships sat next to human tanks and jets. The message was clear. Humanity would use everything at its disposal, old and new, to defend itself. They thought we were primitive because we still used projectile weapons, Smith told the crowd. They didn't understand that we keep what works. We add new tools but never forget the old ones. That's what makes us human. In the council chamber, the alien leaders reached a decision. Earth would be marked in their star charts with the highest danger rating. Not because of their weapons or technology, but because of what the commander's report revealed about human nature itself. They adapt too quickly, the commander explained. Give them a new weapon, they'll improve it in days. Show them a new tactic, they'll find 10 ways to counter it. And they never, ever give up. The council leader made a final note in the official record. Earth is to be avoided at all costs. The humans are not to be underestimated again. They have proven that superior technology alone cannot defeat the combination of intelligence, adaptability, and determination. On Earth, life began returning to normal. But things had changed. Human scientists worked alongside military engineers, combining alien technology with human innovation. They didn't try to copy the aliens' perfect, standardized designs. Instead, they did what humans had always done. They took new ideas and made them their own. In military bases across the world, commanders taught their troops an important lesson. The aliens had lost because they thought their technology made them unbeatable. Humans had won because they knew that victory depends not on having the best weapons, but on having the will to use whatever weapons you have in creative ways. And in deep space, the Dominion's fleets gave Earth's solar system a wide berth. They had learned the hard way that humans weren't just another primitive species to be conquered. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had spent its entire history learning to fight, adapt, and win against any odds.